Welcome back, y'all. Dr. Nicole Truesdale here. As always, I'm your host and guide for this podcast, Abolitionist Dreamscape. So welcome. All right, y'all, it's episode 17. I'm excited. I'm still here. I'm doing it. I'm committing to me, and I'm here showing up. And y'all are here showing up, listening to me talk about all kinds of shit with all kinds of different folks. And this episode is no exception, y'all. So I'm recording this intro on May 2nd, and this is Taurus season. We are deep long into Taurus. And Taurus is that bull, but it's earth, it's pleasure, it's food, it's sustenance, it's our materiality. It's really, for me, the essence of our humanity. One of the essences of our humanity that we can learn how to become human through. With all that in mind, I thought this would be a great time to bring back a friend and an old guest, Donnell McLachlan, and do another Thoughts While High. Because we might as well smoke some shit, talk a little bit, and tell you what's on our minds, right? And so this is what the episode is, Thoughts While High with Donnell. And this time around, we talked about all kinds of stuff, y'all, from sports and basketball to race and gender to music and rap battles to the dead itself. And all the way back around again. So, as always, let me know what comes up for y'all when you listen. If you are partaking in yourself, what are some thoughts while that are being elevated while you are elevating yourself in different ways? And for me, how can we start to work with these different types of herbs in ways that allow us to commune together? Right. And I like to do this episode with somebody because it's engaging in a relationship with one another, but also with the herb itself. And the spirit of the herb will take us to the conversations and places that we need to go. So this is what this episode does. And before I turn it to there, I'm going to do a little housekeeping, y'all. So I hope you stick around with me as well. So as always, I can only do this podcast with y'all's support. And I really do appreciate it because it gives me the drive to continue to keep showing up here and creating and producing every 2 weeks. And so as we're coming toward the end of the second season, there's about 10 episodes per season. I want to thank everybody who's been able to support me. And there's different ways you can support my work. So the first way to do so is always through engagement, like shares and follows, especially on platforms like YouTube that I can also then be able to monetize with and through. This is the reality of being independent, an independent scholar, but also just independent creative, because I'm really moving more into the creativity and not just sitting in the scholarly. So these kinds of engagements with my work really does help. But if you want to contribute monetarily, which is always welcome, you can do so as well. And I'll have how to do so in the show notes below. But I accept donations through various means, through Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, and Zelle, but also primarily through my Patreon. And so if you want to learn more with me, if you want to dream more with me, if you want to contemplate more with me, check out my Patreon. It's also Abolitionist Dreamscapes. There is where I will have longer versions of the podcast episodes that I drop here, especially with this one. There are sections, big chunks of it actually, I had to cut out just for time's sake. But the unedited version of these podcasts will be on my Patreon along with a bunch of other stuff. And right now, y'all, we're reading Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. And if you never read that book, I highly recommend you go pick it up. On my Patreon, I have a free copy of it that I found online. So you can find it online yourself too. But if you want to read along with a group and even do monthly kind of calls in which we're talking about not only what the book is saying, but how the book is speaking to us in this present moment, as we're also seeing around us our infrastructures crumble and having to really face harsh realities and at the same time build. And in that building, we have to sit in our empathy so that we understand that this shit is not working. This is what Octavia Butler is really talking about in her book, Parable of the Sower. And she starts with the year 2024, even though she was writing this back in the early 1990s and was published in 1993. So it's a great book in the present to really not just read and consume, y'all, but to learn from and embody. And that's what we're doing right now on my Patreon, along with a bunch of other stuff that I got up there. So go ahead and check that out too. Tiers start as low as $5 a month. And it's a space that I really am building slowly with folks in a way that allows me to express and create and do the things that I'm also trying to teach about, which is dreaming of what we want in the present. At the same time, I also have other services I do as well through my other entity, Truesdale and Associates LLC. That's where I do a majority of my coaching and consulting through. So if you are in a leadership position and looking for help through an executive coach who will help coach you through a human lens and not coach you to how to accept more abuse in these institutions, please check out my services. You can see them as well as my consulting at drnicoletruesdale.com. That is DRNICOLE, T as in Tom, RUESDELL.com. There is also forms you can use to reach out if you want to book me for speaking engagements, for facilitation, for seminars, webinars. I do a boutique service. So if you are looking for someone to help you or your team be able to kind of vision out different ways of being, and you're wondering if I can be of help, go ahead and check out my website and send me a inquiry form, and we can see if we can connect. Okay. And I think that's all for now. Again, everything will be in the show notes. I'm still doing astrology readings. You can find out how to book as well on my website. And that's all for now. So let's go ahead and turn it over to Donnell and I as we talk thoughts while high. So yeah, okay. So my damn light went out. I'm like, I'm trying to smoke the damn thing, and the damn thing light went out. So you know what's funny?
Tell me.
I haven't watched college basketball in a long ass time, right? And I didn't play basketball. I played basketball for a little bit in high school, but I played volleyball in college. But when I went to grad school, my first master's was out at LSU, Louisiana State. So it was interesting now having LSU back in the news lately, right? Because of Angel Reese. So when I heard about Angel Reese, and this is a few seasons ago, I was like, well, damn, that I was really kind of coming back interested in basketball again, because I realized I had been watching for a long time. Then this whole season is what cracked me up, because all of a sudden Caitlin Clark came out of nowhere to me. Like all of a sudden she's everywhere, right? Like it's about Caitlin Clark. And I'm like, but I'm confused. Angel Reese is the one. Like it's Angel Reese actually, and then also USC, like Dawn Staley and this whole team that is really captivating to me, more of the attention, like more of the interest. But this white woman all of a sudden becomes like the target or like the focus of everything. And I thought it was really interesting, this whole, now that USC won, we ain't hearing shit about USC. It's still about Caitlin.
Yeah. University of South Carolina. It's still to this day, like even leading up to and going through their historic undefeated season, there was very limited media coverage. Like, and you don't see the media coverage happen until like much later on, and a lot of it had to do with Caitlin Clark. Some of the first widespread media coverage of the South Carolina Gamecocks came when Caitlin Clark waved off Raven Johnson during a basketball game. So one of the girls on the team, Raven Johnson, plays for University of South Carolina, and it was during a year when she was struggling to shoot the ball. So Caitlin Clark, they were playing against each other. It was a big deal. And then during the game, Caitlin Clark was guarding Raven Johnson, and she waved her off. Like she didn't guard her because she was at the 3-point line. And it was like this whole viral video happened of Caitlin Clark, this white woman, waving off Raven Johnson, who's a black player from South Carolina, and leaving her wide open and basically daring her to shoot. And so that is one of the first times that I saw the widespread coverage of Caitlin Clark. And the person who was announcing the game was like super excited. Like, she just waved her off. She's like, I'm not even thinking about you. I'm not guarding you. Like they was eating it. They was hyping it up. Like it was just like the most like disrespectful, but also like dopest thing. Like it's her competitive fire, and all this stuff. But when Angel Reese, of course, goes viral for being outspoken and being vocal and being competitive on the court, it's a completely different conversation.
And it's also interesting because that individualism or that competitivism didn't actually win her a damn title. It was a team that was actually a team that won the motherfucking title, right? And that's what's cracking me about this whole thing, right? Like it's like this whole coverage, right? It's so fucking telling, because this is, come up with me on a ride of this fucking mind.
Okay.
So my thing is, we talk about sports, right? Sports is a really big way to understand a nation, period, right? Because
Yes,
it's a pastime,
100%.
right?
Literally.
Any nation, it's the sports. So in America, right, we love team sports. Supposedly we love team sports, right? Because we put a fascination in football and all these motherfuckers on the team, right? It's a huge ass expense. It's a huge ass roster, right? Because it's supposed to be a
Mm-hmm.
team thing. Basketball is the same thing. Baseball, these huge teams, right? But then what is always touted are the individuals and the kind of standouts and showouts, but not everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're a showout in one way, then you are uncouth or disrespectful. But if you're a showout in another way, you're competitive, right? You are the
Yep.
embodiment of the spirit of all this shit. But it's never the individual that wins a goddamn match. It's always a team. And when we
Always.
talk about even the dream team of Olympics, what they were really known for, they were a bunch of individuals, but they knew how to play together. Like they
Mm-hmm.
were great with Jordan and all of them back in the 90s. They dominated because they knew how to play together. The next dream team lost because they were a bunch of individuals who did not understand that the dream team's first energy was the fact they understood the game, and the game
Mm-hmm.
is about a team, right? So let's look at how women's basketball is now being brought to the forefront, because everyone now
Mm-hmm.
has a revelation that women get paid less than men. Well, no shit, Sherlock. The goddamn women been talking about this shit. The women's soccer team been talking about this shit when they were dominating for decades. Let's be
Talk about
real.
it.
No, maybe not decades, but you know what I'm trying to say, y'all.
Yeah,
You
for a
know,
long
you know what
time.
I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, and so now that it's to the national forefront, it's a national forefront because it's about the individual. Caitlyn not making enough money.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's talking about what Caitlyn's not going to make, what Caitlyn's not going to, not talking about everybody else, right? But the thing is, it's a team sport, but yet what is being highlighted is a white woman because she was highlighted by a black woman initially, but you can't have the individualism of competitiveness of a sport that is about women now being forefronted by having it forefronted by a black woman. You need a white woman there. So even
Mm-hmm.
now, with this whole, like, with Dawn having unprecedented 38-0, you know what I mean? And Dawn's
Mm-hmm.
whole history and her whole, like, amazing
Look,
record, right? And that whole team. And they are so cute too, doing the whole swag insert behind while Dawn is crying and talking about God and bringing spirit down.
look, Dawn was
Just
tearing for the spirit.
adorable.
She was tearing. Okay.
Spirit, right? But it's the great juxtaposition. We're doing it in order to elevate this sport to the national consciousness. It must be through what the state knows. Again, because the state represents the entertainment and sport represent what the state is. So now we're reproducing the same shit over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to take away from Caitlyn, but it's also like, is she really the greatest? Like, and why does it have to be a greatest when we know a greatest does not win? A team does, as we just saw.
And again, we still celebrate when we talk about greatness in sports. We talk about winning, like, but now the goalpost is being moved in this conversation about Kaylin Clark. Like, Kaylin Clark has come out. She's broken a bunch of records. She's had great statistical outputs, and she can shoot the ball from 30 feet, and that's all well and good, but it didn't translate to a championship because, you know, teams win games, right? And so, like, you see when she didn't win in the same way that when Larry Bird didn't win in college, because we talk about that
Ooh.
juxtaposition. I just, we can talk about how um, when we talk about sport as a reflection of a nation, and how the WNBA and the NBA, how they use racism how they're going to use racism and have been using racism to kind of elevate the sport and trying to and generate media attention and buzz around it. So Larry Bird didn't win in college, and the same thing happened. All the white people were saying that he's still the great white hope, and he's going to come over to the NBA and he's going to dominate. And he landed in Boston, which is one of the most notorious for its racism in sport. Notorious. Bill Russell, who played for them, won 11 championships for them, couldn't go to certain restaurants. You know what I'm saying? And that still translates to the present day. Because you asked LeBron, they said, LeBron, why do you hate playing in Boston? Oh, because they racist as fuck. That's why.
They are racist
LeBron
as
said
fuck.
this. So it's a known thing what this city is. So Larry Bird, the great white hope, goes to the racist bastion of Boston, and is surrounded by racist white media that is elevating him and pushing him into conversations. So much so that Isaiah Thomas gets mad and says, If he was black, he would just be another good player. Because we've seen Larry Bird before. Elgin Baylor. Elgin Baylor was a black player that played before Larry Bird, had more All NBA appearances, had the same average more points, average more rebounds, and is not in any conversation of the greatest of all time unless you're a true hoop person who knows basketball. But like, we don't talk about them in the same realm of greatness, but because Larry Bird is the great white hope. You know what I'm saying? Magic Johnson won an
Yes, I
NBA
do.
championship his rookie year, and they gave Rookie of the Year to Larry Bird. Magic Johnson got like 4 or 5 votes out of the 70 total votes or something like that. Like, he only
See,
got a few votes. You know what I'm saying? And he was the clear better performer. Beat Larry Bird in the college championship game and beat him in it won the championship his rookie year. But they gave Rookie of the Year to the Great White Hope. It's like this is a repeated history, and we're seeing Caitlin Clark being elevated to that level of status and protection, where she's being protected by white America, who sees this this little white girl from Iowa being quote unquote bullied, even though she was doing the same thing to other players. She did the same thing to Louisville when she played Haley Van Lith, that the "You Can't See Me." And the only difference that changed was that Angel Reese did the "You Can't See Me." And all of a sudden, oh, this is classless. Oh, this is ridiculous. She has no morals. She's not a good sportsman. But when Caitlin Clark did it, oh, she waved her off.
It was the best thing. It was like the most amazing thing. It was a spiritual experience. They got their whole goddamn life. They got their soul snatched back into them.
It's crazy. And so you talk about things being in loops. Like, you can't think of a more clear example of that, and how race elevates things in America, because that's in the roots of everything that we do here.
And that's why I get irritated, right? Like, I'll be honest with this. This is why I get irritated when people are like, well, I make everything about race, because everything is about race. If I wish we didn't have to talk about race, you know how irritating and
reductive we like
it is. You know what I'm saying? Y'all love this shit. All y'all do is the same goddamn thing over and over, and it's so repetitive. When we have to constantly have these same reductive ass conversations, because we got to show you over and over again the history that you refuse to acknowledge, even though it's your own damn history and it's short lived, right? Because you have to hold on to the idea that this was worth it. And what is this? Your whiteness was worth it. Your attachment to it was worth it, right? Because in order for you to be seen by whiteness, you have to allow yourself to be part of its template, and part of that template is mediocrity. You have to be, there's a mediocrity embedded within the structure. That's why the floor has to always move, because the floor has to always move, so that you always have the same types of folks in the same locations of power. Because think about it. You tell us what the floor is. Think about our, like, in our generation. You told us to do all this shit, so we did all this shit, right? And we realized, and we were told this whole lie, you gotta do twice as good to be seen as half. Okay, so then we believed that shit, got burnt out, but we twice as good to be seen as half. So now we're showing you what it means to do the job, whatever the job is. It could be a basketball player, it could be corporate, it could be whatever job you're in, right? So I bought the lie, I fed into it. So now I'm showing you how to do the shit. Now you're realizing this is what it means to do the job, but you can't do it. Because you bought into the lie that if you did it this way, the status quo, you'd be good. So now you're facing a threat. But you have the status quo because you're attached to this shit, right? So then what do? You move that motherfucking floor. So now what is it? Instead of about being a championship, it's about individual stats. Like that, like that means a goddamn thing at the end of the day, right? Instead of it being about you coming and performing in a certain way, it's about, well, you don't seem to really have a team effort or a team spirit. So now all of a sudden it's not about performance, it's about your likability. Right? Ooh. That's why that whole bullshit with Amanda Seales thing was bullshit. Just say you don't like that woman. Don't try to couch your dislike for one individual because she irritates you for whatever fucking reason it is, personal or not, to make a lesson for Black women, in particular Black folks and Black women, to be likable at work. How you gonna be likable in a space that already told you it don't like our black asses, but it needs our black asses because that's the only thing it has to juxtapose itself against, so that it can figure out what the forward needs to be to move it once again.
Man. And you start in the article talking about I actually like Amanda Seales, and then spend the whole article talking about how you don't like her and how, you know, sometimes it's just us. You know, yeah, we acknowledge the Sapphire stereotypes and the Jezebel stereotypes, but sometimes it's our attitude. Sometimes it's just us. What I want to work with me. What are you talking about, man? What are you talking about?
Not a goddamn thing, but a whole lot at the same time, because you're telling on yourself, right? Because them questions were like, you know, can I hold the emotions of others? Why am I holding, maybe you done told on yourself, why am I holding other people's emotions who can't even hold their own goddamn emotions? That's the whole point. That's the whole point. Especially when you in an office or you in a local setting, especially with white folks. Oh, please. And white men, they can't hold their damn emotions. All they doing is spewing it out while talking about how they're not being emotional. And your job is to hold all that shit while also stuffing your shit down. That's why most of us are tired and sick by the time you hit fucking 40. You know what I'm saying? Because they move the goddamn floor. So now we're getting told that this is what a great sportsman is. This is why they now need to get paid after people have been talking about paying these women for a damn decades, right? And then folks will go through mental backflips about, well, they don't generate enough for blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, when you don't allow them to fucking generate, how they gonna... Y'all don't make no goddamn sense.
That's what I'm saying. And you can't tell me that they're not generating money now. The amount of ticket sales they about to get, jersey sales. I scrolled down as soon as Angel Reese got drafted the next day. I'm getting advertisements saying like, you know, from about Angel Reese, and I'm gonna get my Angel Reese jersey. Believe that.
Listen,
but I'm just saying
we're going to some games down now. Just so
we got to go to a game. Can we go?
We gotta go to a game. We gotta go to a game.
That'd be dope. And then we gonna and see. You said how I'd be editing. I'm finna edit this and then put us at the game together. Fast forward us at the game together, and that's finna go crazy. They finna be like, what? They hanging out there at the game? Yes, we at the game. We with Angel Reese. We team Angel Reese. What you thought?
Right? For real.
Angel Reese, right. Camila Cardoso. We in there. The Twin Towers. Yes. Come on. We back.
Yes. We back. For real. I'm like, yes, let's do this shit. Let's do it, right? Let's do it. But
they're making money off these people, is what I'm saying.
Thank you.
And now after black women have been dominating this sport and winning at every level, winning championships at every level, going to the WNBA, winning championships, and flying coach back home. Okay, so this been happening, and Brittany Griner told I remember Brittany Griner showing us how she got selected to the All-Star game, and she had to fly coach going to the game or something like that. Don't even get no type of special treatment. You check it in just like everybody else. After you work so hard and work overtime and get trainers and you focus on your diet to be the best athlete that you can be, and that's the reward. You lucky we even invited you to this All-Star game, and then when that lady got and then when she got was taken in Russia, then nobody want to say nothing.
I know
they was silent. Everybody was quiet. Come on,
that was
Kim
awful.
Mulkey, the coach. We gonna get into Kim Mulkey because man.
That white woman, but honestly, going to so dead ass though. She reminded me. I'm being serious. She reminded me of my advisor at LSU because I worked with a white woman, blonde hair as well. Same thing in the fucking faces lab, at the forensics lab. And when I was trying to get in, I was a McNair scholar. And I remember going to this woman because there was a forensic conferences in Chicago, and my McNair director was like, "Go talk to her to see about where you are in terms of status." So I go see her, and she was like, "Oh, you know what, Nicole? I worked with a black girl once. We had so much fun. I'm sure I can get you in on that." I shit you not. And I just looked at her and I was like, "What?
Get you in on that?
Get me in on that." Not the fact that I had
wow.
I had original research. I had a thesis. I had the GPA. You're gonna get me in on me being black. Oh yeah, that was my intro to LSU. So that woman,
she's like, "Yeah, she said I'm gonna touch your hair."
Listen, and then she had the nerve to talk about. That she was half native because she had shovel safe incisors.
Oh, so she Elizabeth Warren, huh?
Literally. So that's why my whole thesis was on non-metric racing of the skull to disprove this dumb shit that a fucking shovel shaped incisors means that you're native. Like, child, like, when I say so again, the whole point of that is that woman, the Kim, that makes sense. LSU, it's a hot ass mess.
It's a whole disaster because she had Kim Mulkey had a player walk off the team because she refused to use their correct pronouns. One of the players that helped them win the championship last year, one of the key players that helped them win the championship last year. Because remember that at one point Angel Reese wasn't on the team. She was, she walked away for untold circumstances. That at the same time, that other player, same thing. They were both not on the team. And then Angel Reese came back, and then they never came back. And even when and then they did the press conference asking like, what's going on with the player, and Kim Mulkey misgendered them and said she's no longer with us in the press conference. So the same thing happened with Brittany Griner. So when Brittany Griner said that the Kim Mulkey was not accepting of her sexuality and stuff like that, and refused to acknowledge it and said that you ain't got to put our your business in our face, just keep that to yourself type thing. So this is the kind of woman that they just gave a contract extension to, if I'm not mistaken. Paying her millions of dollars.
Reproduction of the state, though, right? This is when I talk about the plantation, right? This is what I mean, like, and it's not hyperbolic. It's not like, and it's not. I guess it is woke because I'm trying to wake motherfuckers up. Like, this is a plantation. Like, it's not about the players. It's about how much they can bring in the commodity, right? So when a lot of these players were like, you need to start paying us at the college level, I agree with that. Because the way college sports uses and abuses students and student athletes in their bodies is not really acknowledged enough, right? These students are going through, you feel beholden because your scholarship is relying upon it, the little money you might get for food before they even allow these kids to be able to have jobs or even get money outside of it is not that much. And you have to then suffer through any kind of abuse that these coaches do. And these coaches, a lot of them are not great when it comes to knowing how to coach people without abusing them. You know what I mean? Like,
they don't know how to coach players without abusing. They grind them, they overwork them, they're yelling at them, they're dismissive.
But they make money for the university.
People celebrate that, like she produces champions, she produces good. She knows how to get them in line.
Saying? Right?
Whenever you say plantation economy, I literally feel like, or it's the reproducing of the plantation. When you look at it at any level and just reduce it to that bare, because like that it helps simplify and helps you understand what otherwise might seem complicated.
Right. So it's just different places.
It's
right?
It's the same thing repurposed in different avenues. But it's the same, like from the root at the plantation. Like when it comes to like using bodies to generate revenue, labor, like unfair, not compensating people for their work, like all that stuff is at the root of so much of most, if not all, American systems in which people are involved.
Yes. So now that there's a new market being seen, because now there's interest in the women going to the WNBA, you see a reproduction again, right?
Yes.
So again, because it is foundational, right? This is also why they never taught us really in the K through 12 system, the fucking plantation system. Because if you actually learn the plantation system, then you would understand you were in the motherfucking system to begin with. You know what I'm saying? Like this is why they not only banning books, but before the banning of books, we've never really learned about slavery or enslavement. We never really learned about the plantation system. We don't even understand that it has roots heavily in New England alongside the Deep South, right? Rhode Island just took plantation out of its state name, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Yeah, Rhode Island, it was like Rhode Island State Plant. I gotta look at the official name, but plantation was in the official Rhode Island state legislation, and when you had any official documentation in a plantation in it, because when I was at Brown, I was like, plantation, but yeah, it was one of the first motherfucking plantations was in Rhode Island. It was a major slave port. That's how it made its money. The land is rooted in the enslavement, heavily rooted.
Rhode Island and Providence plantations?
Yes. And I think they just recently, the past few years,
in 2020, they just took it down in 2020 with a 52% vote. 48% were like, "Oh, we like the plantation." Crazy.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. And that was because of the protest of 2020. Remember, because that opened up a whole can of worms. So plantations are foundational. That's why I talk about it. And the thing is, I'm irritated because I'd rather not talk about it. I'd rather be creating new worlds. But you can't create new worlds unless you understand the world you are in, so you don't reproduce that bitch another way.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like, we on a plantation, y'all. Who's your overseer? And how you going to overthrow that motherfucker then? Right? And you can't. And the thing is, if we in these loops, because again, we're in this time loop, right? And so we're seeing it with the basketball team. And we'll think about it too, right? So we're praising someone like a Kim and her tactics, even though what she's doing actually is highly abusive, and the players are saying it doesn't actually work for us. Y'all are saying, well, shut up, it produces. And then we go to what's going on in the entertainment industry and all of these things coming out, right? We have to take responsibility for how we're complicit in our own subjugation, because we are the ones that have to be be consenting to it as well. That's the whole point of like, if this is the whole point of like, we talk about Gramsci and hegemony, counter-hegemonic resistance, like this idea of hegemony is like what's common sense. The common sense in your good sense, right? What you experience. So if the common sense is a plantation, but you don't understand that that's the common sense, you thinking you revolting, but all you doing is reproducing it in another way. We call it hustle and grind, which we call culture.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Right, and now we got a fucking rap battle with these old heads.
The band was a plantation.
And we okayed it. He said, walk across the bridge and get me a damn cheesecake.
And we were like, how bad do you want it? That's what we said. When we saw that, we were like,
right?
A few people might have been like, that's kind of, but most of us was like, yeah, you got to want it in the music industry. I'll go get that cheesecake if you're not going to walk and go get it, because you don't want it bad enough.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Oh my
so then
gosh.
when you go into your plantation, right, which is your job, your college, whatever it is, right? Then how do you be complicit in your own subjugation, right? How do you tell yourself, like, well, this is what it takes, right? I did that to myself. I know in my PhD, I told myself this is what it takes. I was up at 5 a.m., going to the gym, running hard, then coming back and reading my articles and doing all, like, it was a nonstop things I had to prove, right? Even though I knew I'm up against bullshit, I was also the floor was always moving. The floor always moved to the point where it's like, I'm trying to move with it. And you allow yourself this kind of fantasy that if I just do X enough, then I can catch up. No, they'll move the fucking floor. So this is why when you hit middle age, you get so goddamn tired. And when people are breaking right now, and where society is breaking, I think, because we're realizing that if this is the loop we're on, we have to break it somehow, right?
And because this is go ahead.
No, but this is basically that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just. The whole Diddy thing really bothers me because even the coverage, not just the homophobia, but then also thinking about this dumbass like rap battle shit, right?
Yeah.
It's like y'all want to rap about who was the greatest when there's a whole ass blowing up of an industry occurring, right? That is showing a domino effect of a lot of different things that folks were told and gaslit about for decades. But y'all want to rap about who's the GOAT. And from a man who already won a damn Nobel Prize, and two folks who got white mamas, and one who said they saw it, and the other one who is literally using a black man's voice from the dead to make a record. You know what I'm saying? Like, what kind of shit is this?
This is like out of control. Like it's literally, we're seeing the collapse of it all. Like, it's crazy. Mos Def was he just did an interview. Yasin Bey just did an interview and was talking about how was talking about Drake, right? People he went viral for saying Drake makes shopping music. He said Drake is pop to me, right? Yes. Mos Def goes and says Drake is pop to me because he said, what's in it for the listener? Like, what's in it for the person who's listening to his music besides banging the pom-poms or like celebrating and talking about how much money you have and how much girls you having sex with or whatever the case may be. It's like there's nothing in it for them. So he said Drake is pop to me. If you go to Houston and Target, you'll hear a Drake song, right? And then but he's
along
talking
with
about
Taylor Swift.
Yeah. who Drake loves. Drake in his diss track, in the one that he made using Tupac's voice and Snoop Dogg's voice, he said that Taylor Swift is the GOAT and she's the only person that can make me move off a release date. And Taylor Swift has y'all shook right now. And she's saying that he said that Kendrick Lamar is scared to release his music because Taylor Swift just released her music. It's ridiculous. Drake. No, he said, and this is Drake. Drake said that Taylor Swift is the only nigga that he ever rated. The only one who could make me move my album just a little later. This is what Drake said. You see what I'm saying? So that's who the person who people are trying to fight for and keep him or say that he's hip hop. He said that I don't even care about hip hop. I care about this blonde white woman and the status that she has and the money that she has. And I'm trying to get to where she's at. And so that she's my inspiration. She's my muse. You know.
Donnell, what did we just say about that great white hope?
Yeah. And so when Taylor Swift comes on her new album, Tortured Poet Society, and says that her friends used to play a game with her about what decade they would live in besides this one, and she said the 1830s without all the racists. What's going on? And then
you know what's going on?
But look, wait. Before that, okay. Drake got on his album and is talking about a woman having sex and said that he'll whip and chain you like American slaves. Drake said that. So we see why he celebrates and values Taylor Swift, because they're the only people that can just get on a track and say that, and that's just it. They can just do that.
But you know what's interesting about this? This is a really big time loop thing. If you think about time, because like he got a white mama, goddamn. But like also
was raised by his white mama. Let's start there.
You can tell. God damn, like, but not around. But the thing is, it's not even about the white mama. It sounds like, and I don't know a lot about Drake. I'm not gonna lie. Like, he does sound pop to me. I'm not huge into the hip hop like a lot of folks are. But like, to me, he always seemed like he had an issue because he didn't have his dad. Like there was like his lack of relationship to Black culture and Blackness because of a lack of whatever that shit is. Like you need a therapist for that. Basically, he needs therapy, right? Like, yes. And I get it, but you see that a lot. This kind of juxtaposition of like personalized harm and hurt that you then project out, because this is, for me, it's also this whole J. Cole thing too. Because J. Cole irritates me. You do read, motherfucker. Like, don't talk about I don't read. Yes, you do read. You read. You got a college degree.
He has a college degree.
And no name read you for filth. I don't even know hip hop like that. No name read you for filth, and she dropped books, and you picked that shit up. I know you did to come back, but you cater to a white audience, and a white audience wants to hear conscious rap from a light-skinned Black dude who talks about how he don't read. It just comes naturally from his experiences, because that is a caricature of the Black conscious rapper that your target audience will buy into. They're not going to buy into you going to a PWI, having a degree, and you being able to sit in the tension between your identities and the expression of them and your political affiliation. You can't do what No Name does because you're not allowing your authenticity. You're playing a caricature because you're not comfortable in who the fuck you are. That to me is Drake as well. Though, in another way.
Nicole, you might be on the next diss track. You might be on the next diss track. They're gonna diss you next.
Like, that to me is Drake as well.
So accurate. That was scathingly accurate. That's what makes a great diss. So I am playing with sound and music and me just talking over it. Listen, maybe my spirit, I don't know what I'm talking about, y'all. But I'm just high. But no, but that truly is.
But Drake is more dangerous because he has now went through a pop route, right? So he is the fantasy. He is the fantasy of the light-skinned Black dude who can jump genres. That man jumps genres, not in a cohesive way, in a money-grabbing way, in a way that is formulaic, right? 100%. So you are the overseer who's going to get a little too comfortable thinking that you own something. It's like, no. And this is where I got to bring this up too, the whole idea of colorism. There's colorism, y'all, but within colorism, there's a fetish. And
Mm-hmm.
y'all light skins, and I'm saying this as a light skinned Black mixed race woman, the fetish within the colorist kind of construction needs to be understood. You are being used by power because you have proximity to it, but don't you ever think you will sit at that table with them. Drake is another way of prop that is able to gobble up and be a commodity globally with all these different genres and able to do it because he's a man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not have any cohesion and be able to do it and have I'm hearing these basic ass concerts he's had where he's standing on stage in a bulletproof vest, just rapping about how Rihanna don't like him, right?
That's
Basically
his
like the same
concert. That's
shit,
it.
right? You can be mediocre, right? Because that's the status quo, and you can make billions off of it.
Feel you. I literally feel you so deeply. And it goes back to speaking of the Drake point of him being able to genre jump, and he can also just be in the culture and blatantly disrespect the culture. And now because hip hop has become, this melting pot, everybody can be hip hop and have a conversation about hip hop and can do commentary about hip hop. That's why you got these white people on the internet trying to explain disses and beefs that they don't understand anything about. They don't even understand the culture to begin with. Didn't do their homework. Don't know what's going on. But these white Gen Z kids think they understand hip hop, and they're trying to explain it to us.
Yes.
Doing 30-minute deep dives on a beef that they don't understand anything about, and they are missing so many perspectives and layers because they don't understand the culture. They don't respect it enough to understand the history of it, or why this is even a big deal, or why it's even happening, or how it works. And if we can't if we can't have critical conversations, like if we can't interrogate why it's inappropriate for Drake to use Tupac's voice, and how we've seen other examples, like Kendrick Lamar also used Tupac's voice on a song. But he used the recordings and put the recordings in the song, and he also asked permission for. And during his press runs, when he's having conversations, he said he always made sure to, thank her for allowing him to use her son's voice. He said you could take these vocals and do anything with it and distort his message and distort what he was about. But she, what I'm saying, he had a conversation with her and she allowed him to use his voice because she's always been protective of his legacy and making sure that, what he stood for and what he was trying to mobilize actually gets honored in the present and in the now by creating spaces and different things like that. And so these are the conversations that we're not having, and I feel like it's going to result in the collapse of a lot of different things. Like this feels like the beginning of the end of a lot of different shit.
Well, I think it needs to be the beginning of the end of a lot of different shit because it's built in a house of cards, right? And I think this is a great example of the different uses of someone like Tupac's legacy. Because what Kendrick did is actually respect for the dead. Respect for not just Tupac's legacy, but also his spirit. Respect for the dead going through proper channels, right? And then also honoring by the using of his voice and his platform. So always say the woman, my mother's name. It's like, that's calming down. That's an actual practice, right? Of respect and reverence. That's supposed to be part of this artistic legacy.
Yeah, and keeping that and not trying to distort and taint that message. Like that was the first time that I heard "Eat the Rich" was Tupac talking about he in that sample that in that recording that Kendrick Lamar used, he talked about how he has a vision about the ground opening up and swallowing swallowing the evil.
Yeah.
And he said the ground is the people. And he said, we might fuck around, eat the rich. Like he said that on in this recording that Tupac found that he did from this radio show in Germany, when he was still with us, in the physical.
And that's beautiful archival research too. Like that's honestly that's a beautiful archival research of, again, honoring the dead, but also bringing their full humanity in. There needs to be a rejection at the very basis of the disrespect of a legacy of somebody that everyone likes to rest their moral consciousness on and their relationship to a hip hop history. Don't use that man. Stop using these folks. Let these people rest. If you're not going to respect their spirit and legacy and actually honor in a way that allows that spirit to help us break some shit, then leave them folks alone. Because I hold Tupac's spirit and the folks of his ancestry bring that shit down because I'm tired of it.
Like it was so deeply angering to hear that. And then he also used Snoop Dogg's voice. And Snoop Dogg, when he responded, he didn't really say anything about it. He just said, "They did what? who? Like he was
He
just
didn't even know.
like he knew, but when he found out, he just like pretended like, this is too much. I'm going back to bed. Like he didn't say anything about it or address the fact that he used Tupac's voice or anything like that. And I feel like for some people that was him like kind of co-signing it, because he also didn't confirm nor deny that he was on the song, which also,
See, and
felt
I'm
weird.
tired. But a lot of these old heads do that. If we gonna be have a like, let's be real. A lot of these old heads play that middle fence shit, and we gotta stop that too. That's being
Mm-hmm.
cowardly. That's
Yeah.
being cowardly. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you also gonna have your whole premise based upon this whole tough, again, y'all want to base on these images of a past when they were all young. And let's be young and dumb. We're all young and dumb, but they're young and dumb, and there's a consequence to all of that shit,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you have your whole history and legacy on that. You got people emulating that shit now in the present, still thinking that is what it is. But then you are here, and you need to actually then bring that legacy to the present. Be about that life. And all of y'all want to sit here and basically throw your hands up and be like, well, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not trying to get into that. No, you need to get into that because that's actually your fucking legacy. So I do think this shit needs to break. I'm being
Mm-hmm.
serious. I think it needs to break because it's on a house of cards. And that's why queerness is so hated. Because queerness, regardless, no matter when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to understanding of life, disrupts that binary that says good or bad, about my money, not about my money. Queerness is like,
Yeah.
no, there's a whole lot of possibilities. So that's why y'all so uncomfortable with it and want to reproduce this misogynistic, homophobic shit. Because you bring queerness in, you bring change in, which means you bring real difference in. Y'all don't want that. Y'all want the same reproduction of that plantation.
And y'all don't want to think either. Like no one wants to it's easier to just exist in the binary that white supremacy is set up. Everything is simpler there. Either you a
Yes.
man or you a woman. Either these kind of just black and white binaries are much easier to understand. So when you try to explain some shit, it's like it's not even landing. One and two, I'm not even trying to hear that. We live in the I ain't trying to read all that era.
Listen,
We in the era
listen.
you write an essay, no one's reading the essay, no one's Eastman 2 goes on talks about it all the time, how no one's reading their work. Y'all will watch the video and the video will get 1 million views, but I tell y'all to go read this essay or attach it to this essay or to this, to this link. Like no one's doing the work to actually have a deeper connection to an understanding of the material. So it's like
But
everything, yeah. That's why all these conversations are so reductive. If you talk about
right, which means we have to be the ones putting out different types of creativity, different types of music, different types of conversations, different types of platforms. So like this is where I actually do appreciate Amanda's platform a lot. I don't have to agree with everything she says. That's not the point. We also got to break the binary of thinking good bad. Like
mm-hmm,
if you appreciate someone's platform, you have to like everything about them. Who said that? Right?
yeah,
Like you can appreciate I appreciate the fact that she is making her own fucking space. I'll be very honest with that. That she's making her own goddamn space and she's doing it her way. So I think we have to understand you don't have to always have these huge platforms, but we have to also understand that we have to force and move the situation and conversations, right? I agree. People don't necessarily read, but we also have to remember that the K through 12 system has been systematically dismantled so that you're not even taught how to read.
yeah,
And if you are taught how to read, you're not necessarily taught how to analyze and understand and critically engage that reading
mm-hmm,
because you're taught in a binary, good,
yeah, for
bad,
sure,
right? It's got to go somewhere. So if we're also doing this, then we're going to have to force because let's think about this too. We can't set up our platforms in somebody else's house and then get too upset when that house wants to change the rules and take our shit.
mm-hmm,
Right. So I think that the house, we have to understand the limitations of the house. So things like a TikTok and IG, there's limitations to it. So like for me, I really feeling like not making as much content. And I really haven't because I am focusing more on the writing now. Like I do want
mm-hmm,
to get things out, right, in different platforms and also have to be fed in different ways too for my creativity. So I think there's ways that like a Nico and my their music. Like I think that taking the risk and just doing you in your way and
yeah,
having the people who are drawn to that is really what we have to start focusing on versus these big ass like I need to be capturing millions because we're realizing that that is all illusions and fake. This is why we're seeing the downfall of a lot of these kind of entertainment conglomerates and families that had these, that was all illusionary, right? Making up numbers and shit, because we don't need to have that much attention. We need to be cultivating the communities and these kind of locations that we can start to build these new worlds in. And I think that's something we need to be learning in these moments too. We got to move these conversations. We got to break these cycles and these loops by creating the conversations we want, by doing the platforms we want to do it how, you know what I'm saying? Like if we're tired of people consuming us, then we also have to break our attachments to still being consumed.
Yeah, that's
You
real.
know what I mean? I'd be reading myself for filth. I'm like, damn. Okay, well, I guess got to go do the other shit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We do have to, especially when we talk about this TikTok ban too, right? Like, people ease this legislation or ease this line into this, must pass bill, basically, that has all these, more important issues on there. And now they're trying to, of course, TikTok has said that they're not going to sell. But yeah, it is time for us to, create different spaces and move conversations into, into other ways, other platforms, other spaces, and create the spaces that we want to, that people need.
Yeah, and it's not an organization all the time. We don't need more organizations, y'all. We just need people to build their own communities. Like, I think we're overthinking it because we want these grand ideals and we want to see things automatically turn around because we figured it out. Like, this is about time again, right? And understanding whose timing of life are you using. There's an urgency here because there's an urgency. People are dying. But I'm also saying this, and I'm saying this with both nuance and with a lot of respect for the dead. It's also always been here.
Yeah.
So your awareness of it does not somehow speed up the urgency that's always been there. You're just now feeling it. So your timeline has shifted.
Yeah.
You have shifted realities. You have come into a different reality, a reality that many have already been living in.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're in a new reality, y'all, because you're now seeing a different reality, you really can't keep bringing the old reality's tools with you because that's how we keep bringing the old. It's like, this is the reproduction. This is what branch, but hegemony. This is hegemonic reproduction, hegemonic constructions, right? That's why you have to understand what you're in. You have to understand the reality. That's why I talk about the plantation so much. I'm tired of it. I'd rather talk about music and dreaming and other shit, and which I am. But you have to understand that the plantation is so good at reproducing itself because it's foundational to the nation. So once you realize that this motherfucker is violent and you're seeing the urgency, right, you have to also then you have to stop yourself for a bit and get present because you're bringing the urgency of whiteness in that says once it is aware of something, then it's important.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to check yourself because we're all agents of that shit. I don't care what your skin color looks like, right? We're all agents of it because that's what we're conditioned to be in. So now you're here, you got to be present. This is why presence is so important and being in the moment, being in the now and feeling some shit and allowing those feelings to run through your body so that you can get grounded and understand what is a new way to be. What do we actually want to have and build, right? Again, this is why I do respect folks like an Amanda who are building their own ways. But you can't rely upon others to do it because that is still looking at somebody external who is providing different information and templates. But then what are you doing it in the local? Right? So if you say you want community, you don't need another organization to do that. That is what the structures of the state told you. You need these systemic, hierarchical, bureaucratic things. Does that work? No, y'all.
Yeah.
So then what does it mean to go out and talk to your motherfucking neighbor? I really do mean that. What does it mean to understand what your needs are so that you understand who you can actually turn to? But in order to do that, you have to be vulnerable enough with yourself to tell yourself you do have needs and you have every right to have those needs met. And Black folks, Black women, Black queer folks, I'm going to ask you this. How much are you in your bodies enough to really answer and be able to express your needs and allow that vulnerability out there so that you can attract others who can also be vulnerable together so y'all can actually do this thing called community and living in life? That is real Blackness, not this shit we're being fed by so-called leaders who all of a sudden are so-called leaders of black thought that came out of nowhere who are doing nothing more than reproducing conservatism. So, because this is why we have fucking people like Candace Owens all of a sudden getting a good read through Black media, while also demonizing someone like an Amanda. Again, you ain't gotta like any of these folks, but the juxtaposition is real fucked up right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really stuck on your point about like how we become so attached to how we understand how things are supposed to be in the previous reality.
Yeah.
Because you're right, like people do feel like they have to create some sort of organization and have a .org website and create like these systems and have
Yeah.
I don't know, like it doesn't have to be so that formal.
Yeah, it doesn't. We don't have to be that formal, but to be informal would mean vulnerable. So you just want to say, like, that's why I understand I really do understand why it's so uncomfortable though. Like, it's really uncomfortable, right? You're aware now. Like, think about when it hits you, like when it really hits you, like with what's going on in Gaza and the realization of the kind of conflict, like all these things together, right? All you can do is feel. It's a lot. It's a lot. But in that feeling, it opens you up, right? And this is something I want to talk about more going forward, is that to practice what you preach means that this shit isn't easy. Like when I have to open up to somebody, it feels like I'm crawling out of my skin. Like I want to throw up because like I have to express that I have a need, that I can't do everything. And I know I can't do everything. I don't want to do everything, but most of my life I've been conditioned to have to perform that I can do everything, the fixer. Right? This is why I talk about breaking shit and breaking the relationship to the structures of the state by breaking your relationship to work, because that is what gets us to give up our needs in favor of an institution. Right? I'm not fixing your shit if I didn't break it. So once you're in your body enough and realize, for me, I have needs. I can be needy. Like there's things that I need from people who will consider themselves friends of mine. I need to be able to do X, Y, and Z. But for me to admit that and know what they are and then tell other people and then have to put a trust out there. But the thing is, I have to trust myself to know, even if they say no, that is my sign that they are not the community for me then. But I have to trust that I can still express that again. See, that's where people get fucked up. Because you say you do it once, that's the shutdown. That means, oh, I got to go back. No, you're birthing yourself. It's brand new. How the fuck do you know until you do it, right? And so that's actually really good feedback, because if you trust yourself and you allow that vulnerability out, but you understand what it means to give vulnerability, right, with discernment. So this is about the trust in the body and being present. Then when you get that quote unquote rejection, you do understand that as protection, because that's really not the space or place for you in that moment, because your needs are actually over here. So now your sight is opened and you can figure out what you want. And then that is what allows you to build whatever you're trying to build. That's new world building.
Yeah, that's
like, that's what I want to do.
The challenge of like putting yourself back out there after getting shut down is very real.
It's really real. It hurt. I mean, it's uncomfortable. It's listen, it's uncomfortable. That's why I smoke weed,
Oh my God.
But like it's real. It's like shit. But then I have to also trust my past experiences. So if I'm in an X, Y, and Z space or people, and that didn't work for me, I got to stop going there then. I have to then force myself to kind of go over here, right? And so it's uncomfortable because you're birthing yourself again. But I think we have to birth ourselves again, so we have to break these fucking conversations.
And I have a question related to like talking to your neighbors, right? Because this is something that I hear all the time and stuff like that. When never mind, because I guess that would apply. The whole concept of like if you are shut down by your neighbor, it's like, okay, like this is not, maybe this person isn't who I build with, or who's the person for me moving forward, and you try other.
Yeah, and also like, let's be real too. People are complicated just as we are, right? So if you try the first time and then maybe shut down, like sometimes you just gotta put yourself out there again. It could have had a bad day. Like if maybe you cough like so like, because if it's a neighbor, there's a difference there. You don't have to be best friends, but if I really do in bunch, I'm in a pinch and I'm home and I need to call on somebody and I need someone there right then and there, I need to be able to know if I can go next door because they know who I am. You know what I mean? Like, so we don't even have to be best friends. So it's also like, this is where discernment comes in, and we have to understand grace And we can't give it to others until we give it to ourselves, because we think about, I know I've been some days where I've been outside and someone's approached me. I'm just not in the mood to talk because I've been talking all day or something like that, right? So I might have shut down, but then later on you catch me and I'm overly open, right? Because you're my neighbor,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a way that I do want some commonality or familiarity because if something's happening. Like I had a plumbing issue up front. So I went out. I just did this. Like last week. I was in my feelings. Oh my God, I was in my feelings. It was one of the, I think it was the eclipse or something. I don't know. Like I was crying. I was like, what the hell's going on? Maybe I go outside and get some sun. So I go outside and get some sun. I'm gonna go for
Mm-hmm.
a walk. And my neighbor's outside. Now I've been here for now it's gonna be about 2 years next month.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also the 2 years of hell, divorce, all that shit, right? So I was also kind of to myself. So I'm out there and she's she's sitting down, working on her front, like kind of like garden thing. And I was like, hello. She said hello. And then I walked by and I said, just say something. Something's in my head to say something. I said, well, that's a really nice rock wall because they just got this rock wall put in. It is really nice. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, it's a really nice rock wall. That led to a 30-minute conversation, right? She's lived here for 38 years. So she knows everything about the neighborhood. So I finally asked, hey, I had this plumbing issue. Do you have the same thing? And she was like, oh, yes, I saw that. Yes. And she explained how there's an issue with the block, right? So now I have information that I need. I know I'm not crazy. I also understand that there's a lot of solidarity. And if we ever need something, she said X, Y, and Z, let me know, right? And
Yeah.
she explained to me neighbors down this way. That's something that we need as a neighborhood, because if we need to put up something together because the city got us fucked up, we know each other enough to be able to come together as needed because there's a block issue.
Yes, that's so
Do you
important.
see what I'm saying? Like, and I
Yeah.
just did this and it was uncomfortable, y'all. It's uncomfortable, right? Like this is much easier for me to talk like this or one-on-one, but like putting yourself out there, because I've done this before, right? I've had, I've had stack stabs, I've had front stabs, I've had heartbreaks. But at the same time, and this is going to sound so corny. I'm going to put this out there. It sounds so corny. But at the end of the day, if I let the people who hurt me take away the love that I know is in me, then they really did win. And I'm too
Yeah.
much of a fucking Scorpio rising to let a motherfucking win over me. You will not break my goddamn love because you couldn't accept this shit, okay? My Leo is like, you got me fucked up if
Mm-mm-mm.
you think you're gonna dim this shit because you couldn't hold it. So that's honestly why then I'm like, fuck it. I want to know because I do want to know my neighborhood because I'm now
Mm-hmm.
trying to settle here. You see what I'm trying to say? So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's real. Wow.
Right. But friends may be a little different. Like we're developing a friendship, right? So like you don't live right next to me, but you live in the same area. So that's also really helpful, right? I've got a
Mm-hmm.
friend over in South Shore, right? Like so developing friendships is also got friends other places, right? Friendship and community can be the same thing, but then they don't always have to be the same thing because sometimes you need a community that is doing things locally and you also have friendships so that you have them all over the place. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we also are learning how to be human again this way too. Like that's
Yeah.
what networks are. That's really what networks are.
Yeah. And you're like we do limit ourselves to so much when we don't build those relationships. Like
Right.
because you never know how people can be helpful or how they can help meet needs you might have or how you could help meet needs they might have that might be easy to you that might be more
Yeah.
difficult to them, like. And I think that's why that's one of the things that makes the plantation economy so effective is that it keeps us in these individual baskets. It keeps us with our own cotton bags and seeing how much, making sure that we all have our own cotton and we can't help you out because I got to make sure I get my cotton and bring it to the overseer so that I can get what I need to go in life. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's the same replications, and
Yes.
we're so like kind of in the individualism and so like we're so seeped into the culture that white supremacy has created, which is heavily based on individualism and individual merit and cutting not associating with people who don't help you reach certain end goals and like all these different things. Like you're taught to reduce yourself into an island and where you stand alone. Real. Yeah, and it ties into this whole. I've heard people talk about this concept of liberal perfectionism, where
Yeah.
everyone has to be ideologically the exact same and believe the exact same things. And if they don't believe the same things, like if you got a friend that's still drinking Starbucks, you just cut them out of your life, even if they provide other essential, another essential element to your community that you might need. because you're not going to agree with everyone ideologically. Everyone's not going to have the exact same opinion, but that's also the state. The state is expert at, trying to make everyone think and act and be the same. That's why they want everybody to be Christian and everybody to have conservative Christian values and everyone to be about the nuclear family and everybody to, to hate queer folks. Like, they want us all to think and move and act the same because it's easier to control people who think and act and move the same and have the same authorities in their lives. Everybody relying on the Bible for their authority. So when the people say, "Oh, the Bible says this," then everybody gonna do this. It's like, no, we need people who are going to be interrogating. We need people who are going to ask the questions. We need people who are going to be irritants, who are going to be agitators, who are going to, disrupt the status quo. We need people who are going to be like, "Hey, y'all see this?" And no one else is looking at it, but they like, "Y'all see this? Are y'all? We're all aware that this is happening, right?"
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't say it, even if you hold it in your mind and you don't say it out loud, we need someone who's going to say the thing out loud. Because if it's not said out loud, then people will just act like it's not happening or it doesn't exist. Because we really we'll trick ourselves, you know what I'm saying? But it's, like I said, it's all about getting to this place of everyone thinking and being and acting and believing the same. Like, that's also white supremacy. And so how do we celebrate diversity and celebrate the other elements that people bring to our communities and stuff like that?
Well, because the thing is, this is not a conspiracy, right? People want to do this conspiracy. No, it's just history. It's history.
Yeah,
that's how basic power is. It reproduces in these same ways, right? We never left the Roman Empire. Let's be real. This is just the same idea of Roman ruler and dominantship through a nation-state lens. So we have to break that kind of imagining, because this is literally an imagining based upon white men who are imagining based upon their idealization of that time period, right? So when we try to break imaginations, we have to allow ourselves the ability to sit in our own messiness.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because it's really easy to have this kind of ideological underpinning, right? People are saying, well, I can't have somebody different, political affiliation, at my table. I understand that, because it's difference between not seeing somebody's humanity and having a difference of opinion. And I think we've conflated all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't understand what our needs are. If you understood what your needs are, both individually and collectively, right? If you actually understood what your needs are, which means you have to be in your body, which means you would be in your humanity, then you would understand, to break the coloniality that we are in a generation of breaking shit. We will not see the kind of fruits of our labor fully, because we have to lay the groundwork for the future generations to be able to have a ground to build from, right? So we can't be selfish through the lens of the state. We have to actually be selfish in terms of understanding what ourselves needs. So you have to then be comfortable in your own messiness, so that you understand what is required of you to have to do a both and, so that you don't get consumed by these structures once again. Because if you're going to be in the master's house, okay, if you're going to be in the master's house, you have to understand how the master operates. And the master operates by infesting itself in you one way, shape, or form. It will consume you somehow. So you must be protected. Once you are aware, once you are awakened, once you have had the realities collide, so now everything is urgent, right? Because now you feel. You have to understand that that's already been there. So it's already been there. Now you're just realizing it. So realities are colliding, and you are still operating in these kind of spaces of the in-between, where you're trying to bring that reality over to a new one. You have to go back into that space. So then you must be protected. This is why community matters so much. This is why you must be okay being vulnerable, so that you speak truth, not just in that space, but to yourself, so that you believe your reality when you're in these spaces, so that you give yourself the power to move if you need, when you need to, so that you realize that the lie is that you need to be in there in order for your security and safety. Once you're actually in your body and you believe this shit, and you got other people around you who got you because you told your needs and they told you theirs, then you have the courage to move. That's faith. That's faith. That's humanity. But you have to be comfortable in the messiness, and you have to have community, and you have to be protected. Yeah. So protection means a lot of different things, right? So if you got a spiritual practice, what is your protection? Stop trying to throw a hex at somebody, and actually put yourself into a bath and cleanse yourself, so that you sit in your reality and have some sense, so that you're not digesting the common sense of the structure, but you're sitting in your good sense in your experiences. Right? So we got to be human again. This is all
Yeah.
human. This is humanity. This is why I'm saying, like, I don't know. I guess, like, I've been thinking a lot, Donnell, about how I want to move, like my own business and stuff, and like what I want to do. And I want to build with people. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm really interested in building with folks spaces that allow us to express how we understand our humanity, especially as we're older, right? In these kind of ages that we're supposed to already know and be. But these are the ages that we're supposed to actually break everything, right? This is like we're supposed to believe what happened and break stuff. So what does it mean to really break shit and create and tell our own stories? Because our storytelling forces these conversations to move.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's not my history of hip hop. This is some bullshit. Like, and again, I'm not even current, but the J. Cole and Drake, anyone can read that shit from a mile away. If you haven't, if you, if your lens and sight is not that of an industry that's built upon exploitation, as we've seen over and over again, because that should actually really make a lot of young artists uncomfortable. Drake using an AI that way without the permission and the kind of copywriting and like actually like getting the respect. Because why does anyone then need your young new voice? They're just going to go back in the archive and do exactly what a plantation does, use the dead disrespectfully and make the Black folks work for their ass once again. You got to break this shit, y'all. This is not cute. This is capitalism consuming our dead once again and getting you to buy into it. Again, you might think I'm crazy. Don't mean I'm wrong.
Like you're laying it out so plainly, and that's what's making it so jarring. Like I knew, like when I first saw it happen, I was just so like, I felt a lot. I felt so much all at once, and because I've made videos about Tupac and about Tupac's like, I made videos about Asada Shakur explaining, how she defended herself in the trial against the NYPD when they were trying to infiltrate and take down the Black Panthers, and how she defended herself and how she got the cop to admit that she was actually creating community and that they came in there and was the ones who was trying to introduce violence and try to get them to buy bombs and do shit to destroy the community. When they were called out on it, it was an issue. But then, lo and behold, it was so it's like I've talked about extensively about this legacy, and I've talked about Tupac, and so it's fresh in my mind, all these things, the history, and Tupac, and how she called him the Prince of the Revolution, and how he was actually talking to people in prisons and had, it was mobilizing people to come together and stop stop certain things from happening in the Black community, stop drive-bys and things like that from happening in different communities and stuff like that. So there was organization happening, and a lot of this was so to see that commodified, to see that kind of distorted, to see people, like you said, people who claim to respect Tupac, who will use him to try to, as some sort of like, entry point, or try to prove their love for hip hop, will mention his name but not understand what his message was about, and so that you're right, this has to break, because this is this is destructive. This is a replication of the plantation economy, and it's showing that nothing is safe, nothing is sacred. If we can respect and revere the dead and those who came before us, especially those who we revere and people who we see as creating an impact and creating and sparking change in the minds of young folks, or in a positive way, then what is sacred? What else will be disrespected? What's next?
Well, I think this is what we're in right now too. This also comes into this present moment of realities colliding, right? I love exactly what you said, Donnell, because it's got me thinking a lot about Pluto and Aquarius right now, right? And I talk a lot about the Lord of the Underworld, which is Pluto, ushering in the collective dead, unconsciousness, Aquarius, in a time loop of 250 years in which we're reevaluating how we've been fed history, the revolutions, whose site and whose history using and why. Haiti coming back in again, right, into the conversation because they're refusing, they believe their history and they're refusing to reproduce it. So they're saying, stay out, and they're basically being met with violence because they're building a canal.
Yeah.
They're building a canal. Right. So we need to also reinterrogate what violence means and what resistance looks like. Right. But in all of that, too, we're realizing that there is no respect for the dead because there's no respect for life in these systems. This is why we have these convoluted ass kind of rhetoric going on about what's going on over in Palestine right now and in Gaza, right? Because there is this rhetoric around and being able to use intellectualism with anti-Semitism to justify what that state is doing, because there is no respect for the dead. You can sit here and put numbers that are atrocious, 37,000 people dead in a 6-month time span, right? And there can be a justification for that because it's just people who have died. You don't care about the dead, but the dead are here and they're talking really loud right now, right? They're demanding that they're not only the history be told in the present, but in order for you to respect the dead, you have to respect life.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people are realizing, how much these systems do not respect life, no matter how logical you try to make your argument. This is why debating in these systems doesn't make any sense, because they will move that floor about what is debatable and how the debate is going to be kind of quote unquote even couched. And the questions they use to keep the shit narrow. They did that to the young USC valedictorian that they didn't allow to speak when she was speaking on one of those news outlets. They made the question narrow, so she forced that question open. That was beautiful because that's what I mean. Don't allow them to keep the storyline where they are. You have to bust that bitch open and make the conversation where it has to go, right? Which means you will not be liked, which means you will not be respectable, because we know respectability filtered through these institutional systems will always make you docile.
And they'll dismiss you and say, oh, you're just trying to avoid the question. You don't want to answer the question. You're dodging the question. It's like, no, you're asking the wrong questions. We're expanding. We're rethinking. We're not even going to start with answering this question, because you answering this question implies that you don't understand X, Y, and Z. So this is why we're going to move this conversation into a larger question and answer that way, because it will shed light on what you're actually asking, what you're trying to ask with your underlying assumptions around your question. And it's also going to allow me to provide the adequate information that people are going to need to actually understand the context of what we're talking about.
And yes, Donnell, you said something really important, because the initial question has an underlying assumption.
Yes.
Right. So I have to buy into your underlying assumption in order for me to answer it. That's it. That is an assumption upon itself that I did not consent to.
Yeah,
so if I didn't consent to even the assumption to begin with, I'm not going to even engage there. We're going to open up the conversation.
Because I'm not going to validate that. I'm not validating that assumption by answering that question. I'm not going to justify that question, dignify it with an answer. And people
that's disruption.
Yeah.
Right? That's another form of disruption. But then people say, and so they'll move the floor on you when they have commentary on it, but you have to also understand that's part of disruption. So you have to be, this is where I'm saying for a lot of folks too, especially when you're young, you have to be okay with the backlash, because that's part of the disruption. You can't disrupt and then not have a consequence to it, right? So we have to then make space for the consequences and understand that needs support. We have to already know what the oppressor is going to do, so that when they deploy that tactic, there's already an underlying foundation, because that's what community is, right? You believe your oppressor because you're in the present and now, because the realities have collided and you understand how easy it is to reproduce this shit. Right? And so I think we are at a crossroads right now. This is the Jupiter. So we're recording this on the 21st of April. So this is the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction right now that's happening in Taurus. So there's a way that even people who are really resistant to change, because the planet of change, rebellion, Uranus, the higher octave of Mercury, how we communicate, the kind of things that come to us that we know is right next to the planet of expansion, the planet of abundance, but it abundantly expands what it touches. And it's also the planet of philosophy and what we believe in, coming together in the sign of Taurus, that is the most fixed earth sign. This means that change is here, and even the most fixedness of systems are in the route for awakening. Yeah. Everything is breaking, right? So even the planet, I don't have to believe in astrology. I don't care if you believe in it. This is the archetypes that are telling us a story. And that story is giving us a reflection of the times that we are in. So shit is breaking. So if we keep disrespecting the dead as we are in these so-called places that are all rest their whole foundations on the dead themselves and that legacy, we cannot not expect this shit to start shaking at the damn tables.
Wow. And it's happening.
Don't call Spirit down if you don't want Spirit here.
Be careful.
All right, y'all. I think that's all we got for this time around. So, Donnell, how about this? Let's talk offline, but why don't we make this a little bit more regular? A little Thoughts While High with Nicole and Donnell. What you think?
We can definitely make this regular. I'm pulling back up. You already know. So whenever we decide the next date, we'll put it out there. But I'm definitely excited about coming back next time and seeing what we can get into next.
Okay, that's great. So how about this, y'all? Let us know in the comments below, whatever platform you're listening on, what are some kind of topics that are interesting, what came out for y'all, and what you'll be in this conversation. What kind of world do you want to build, and who do you want to build them with? Because that'll help Donnell and I figure out what we're going to talk about next time when we got a little smoke and want to talk about what's on our mind. So thanks again for joining in with Thoughts While High.